Harold Adrian Russell Philby. Kim, as he was universally known, he cut an impressive figure, an Englishman through and through, or so it seemed. He was the product of Westminster School, then Trinity College, Cambridge, the very heart of the British establishment. His father, St. John Philby, was a noted Arabist, an eccentric explorer, a controversial figure in his own right. Kim inherited a certain rebellious streak, but he packaged it differently. He cloaked it in undeniable charm. A disarming stutter sometimes surfaced. It only made him seem more human, more vulnerable, less threatening. This was a carefully cultivated asset. People liked Kim Philby. They trusted him. Men found him engaging, a good drinking companion, quick with a wry joke. Women were often captivated by his quiet intensity, his air of thoughtful intelligence. He possessed an easy confidence, the kind that drew people in. He listened more than he spoke, a rare quality. It made people feel important, understood. He was, by all accounts, excellent company. This affability was his greatest weapon. It was the key that unlocked countless doors. Doors that should have remained firmly bolted against him. He was the quintessential clubbable Englishman, the sort you'd never suspect. Beneath this polished veneer, however, lay a core of icy conviction, a profound duplicity. He navigated the corridors of power with effortless grace. He moved within the most secret circles of British intelligence. All the while he served another master, a hostile power, the Soviet Union. His commitment to communism was absolute, forged in his youth. It became the guiding principle of his life. A secret faith he would never renounce, not even when it cost him everything, or more accurately, when it cost his country and those who trusted him so dearly. This was the paradox of Kim Philby, the admired friend, the respected colleague, the decorated intelligence officer, and the devastating traitor. He was a man of layers, each one meticulously constructed, each designed to conceal the truth. His life was a performance, a long, intricate play, and he was its star actor. He fooled an entire generation. He fooled his closest friends. He fooled the intelligence services of two world powers. His story is a chilling reminder, a reminder that the most dangerous enemies can sometimes wear the most familiar faces and speak with the most reassuring voices. Cambridge University in the early 1930s. It was a crucible of ideas, a place of intellectual ferment. The world was in turmoil. The Great Depression cast a long shadow. Capitalism seemed to be failing. Fascism was on the rise in Europe. For many bright young students, communism offered a compelling alternative, a promise of equality, a vision of a better world. Kim Philby was one of them. He arrived at Trinity College in 1929. He was idealistic, searching for a cause. He found it in the radical politics of the time. He was not alone in this quest. His formal recruitment into Soviet intelligence was almost understated. It happened around 1934. He had recently married Litzy Friedman, an Austrian Jewish communist. She was a fiery, committed activist. She undoubtedly influenced his political leanings. Through her connections, he met Arnold Deutsch, a charming, persuasive Austrian. Deutsch was a key Soviet recruiter, an illegal agent operating under deep cover. He saw in Philby immense potential. A young man from the heart of the British ruling class, an ideal candidate for long-term infiltration. Philby readily agreed. His conversion was complete. His path was set. The commitment Philby made was not a youthful folly. It was a profound ideological choice. He believed fervently in the communist cause. He saw the Soviet Union as the bulwark against fascism, as the future of humanity. This conviction would sustain him through decades of deception. It allowed him to betray friends, to send colleagues to their deaths, to undermine the very country that had nurtured him. He saw himself not as a traitor, but as a soldier in a secret war, fighting for a higher purpose. This self-perception was crucial. It insulated him from guilt, from the enormity of his actions. His Soviet handlers were patient. They understood the long game. Philby was instructed to shed any overt communist connections, to build a reputation as a conventional establishment figure. He was to become a mole, burrowing deep into the fabric of British society, waiting for the moment to strike. He played his part with consummate skill. He embraced the outward trappings of his class. He cultivated the right friendships. He said the right things. All the while his loyalty lay elsewhere, with Moscow. His journey into the shadows had begun, a journey that would shake the foundations of Western intelligence. Philby's controllers in Moscow gave him clear instructions. He was to penetrate British intelligence, the secret intelligence service MI6. It was an audacious goal, but Philby was an audacious man. He began by working as a journalist, a useful cover. It provided him with reasons to travel, to meet influential people. He reported from Franco's Spain during the Civil War. He even received a medal from the nationalists, all part of building his anti-communist credentials. A necessary deception. He was playing a long, careful game. Every move was calculated, every action designed to advance his secret mission. His entry into MI6 came in 1940. The Second World War was raging. Britain needed able men. His establishment background helped. So did his carefully crafted persona. He joined Section D, a branch focused on sabotage and propaganda. He impressed his superiors. He was intelligent, diligent, and seemingly loyal. He soon moved to Section 5. This was counterintelligence. His role was to identify and neutralize enemy agents. The irony was profound. The fox was now guarding the henhouse. He was perfectly placed. He could protect Soviet agents. He could feed Moscow vital information. His rise within MI6 was remarkably swift. He was seen as a rising star, a man of great promise. He was calm under pressure, articulate. He understood the complex world of espionage, or so it appeared. His colleagues liked him. They trusted his judgment. Guy Burgess, a fellow Cambridge recruit and Soviet spy, helped smooth his path. Burgess was already inside MI6. Their shared secret bound them together. Philby cultivated an image of quiet competence. He was not flamboyant, not overtly ambitious. This made him seem even more reliable, more trustworthy. By the end of the war, Philby was in a powerful position. He became head of Section I, the anti-Soviet section. It was an astonishing achievement for a Soviet agent. He was responsible for running operations against the very people he served. He had access to the most sensitive files, the names of British agents, the details of ongoing operations, the secrets of Britain's allies. All of this was now available to Moscow. Kim Philby had reached the inner sanctum. The damage he could inflict was almost unimaginable, and he was just getting started. Kim Philby was not a lone wolf. He was part of a network. A group of highly placed Soviet agents, recruited at Cambridge University in the 1930s. They became known as the Cambridge Five: Donald Maclean, Guy Burgess, Anthony Blunt, and John Cairncross. Though Cairncross's connection was sometimes debated, each man was driven by a similar ideological conviction, a belief in communism, a desire to serve the Soviet Union. They were young, brilliant, and profoundly disillusioned with the Western order. They saw themselves as pioneers of a new world. Each member of the ring had his own sphere of influence. Maclean infiltrated the Foreign Office. He rose to become head of the American department. He had access to top-secret Anglo-American communications. Burgess, flamboyant and reckless, worked for MI6 and the BBC. He was a useful, if unpredictable, asset. Anthony Blunt, an art historian, became surveyor of the King's pictures. He also worked for MI5. The security service. He provided valuable intelligence from within. Cairncross worked at Bletchley Park, the code-breaking centre. He passed vital enigma decrypts to Moscow. Their collective reach was extraordinary. Philby was arguably the most important of them all. His position within MI6 was pivotal. He could protect the others. He could warn them of danger. He could misdirect investigations. They formed a tightly knit group, bound by their shared secret, their shared ideology, and their shared danger. They relied on each other. They covered for each other. Their success lay in their ability to exploit the trust placed in them, the trust of their friends, their colleagues, their country. It was a betrayal on an epic scale, a betrayal born in the rarefied air of Cambridge lecture halls. The Cambridge Five operated for years without detection. They were a testament to the effectiveness of Soviet recruitment and to the naivety of the British establishment. It struggled to comprehend that its own sons could betray it so completely. The idea was almost unthinkable. This disbelief provided the spies with a crucial shield. They were insiders. They understood the system. They knew how to manipulate it. Their actions had devastating consequences. They compromised countless operations. They cost the lives of many agents. Their legacy is one of infamy, a dark chapter in the history of espionage. Section 5: Whispers and Casualties, Early Betrayals, Lasting Scars. Philby's position within MI6 gave him immense power, the power to save Soviet agents and the power to destroy British ones. He wielded this power ruthlessly. One early significant betrayal involved Konstantin Volkov, a KGB officer in Istanbul. In 1945, Volkov offered to defect. He promised a treasure trove of information, including the names of Soviet agents inside British intelligence. The report landed on Philby's desk. Philby, head of the anti-Soviet section, he knew immediately the danger Volkov posed to himself. To his comrades in the Cambridge Five, he had to act fast. He delayed sending the report to London. He volunteered to handle the defection himself. He travelled slowly to Istanbul. By the time he arrived, Volkov was gone, bundled onto a Soviet plane, never to be seen again. Philby had alerted Moscow. Volkov was silenced. His secrets died with him. Philby had saved himself and his network. But he had also demonstrated his cold-blooded efficiency, his willingness to sacrifice anyone to protect his mission. The British officers who trusted him were none the wiser. They lamented the lost opportunity, the elusive traitor who had tipped off the Soviets. They never suspected it was Philby himself. Another damaging episode involved Erich Vermehren, a German Abwehr officer. He defected to the British in 1944. He brought with him valuable intelligence about German networks. Philby was involved in handling his case. He managed to subtly undermine Vermehren's information. He cast doubt on its reliability. He ensured that the full potential of Vermehren's defection was never realized. This was a pattern Philby would repeat. He didn't always need to directly expose operations. Sometimes it was enough to misdirect, to sow confusion, to ensure that British intelligence chased shadows or missed vital clues. These early betrayals were just a foretaste. Philby was meticulous. He covered his tracks well. He understood the bureaucratic mindset of MI6. He knew how to manipulate paperwork, how to exploit rivalries between departments. He was a master of the subtle art of sabotage from within. Each success emboldened him. It reinforced his belief in his own abilities and in the righteousness of his cause. The cost in lost intelligence, in compromised operations, was immense. But the human cost was even greater. Agents betrayed, lives ruined, all because of the man at the heart of British intelligence, the man they called Kim. Section 6. Across the pond, deep in deceit, Philby in Washington. In 1949, Kim Philby received a new, prestigious posting. He was sent to Washington, D.C. to be the Chief British Intelligence Liaison Officer, working with the newly formed Central Intelligence Agency and the FBI. It was a position of immense trust and immense opportunity for a Soviet spy. He now had access to the deepest secrets of American intelligence right at the height of the Cold War. Moscow could scarcely believe its luck. Philby was at the very center of the Western Intelligence Alliance. He was privy to joint operations, to shared intelligence, and to the identities of American agents. One of his most devastating betrayals in Washington concerned Operation Valuable. It was a joint MI6-CIA venture, an attempt to overthrow the communist regime in Albania. Agents were to be infiltrated by sea and air, linking up with local resistance groups. Philby was directly involved in planning the operation. He passed every detail to his Soviet handlers, every agent's name, every landing site, every timetable. The result was a catastrophe. The infiltrated agents were met by Soviet-led security forces. Hundreds were captured and many were executed. The operation was a bloody failure, thanks entirely to Kim Philby. Philby charmed his American counterparts, just as he had charmed his British colleagues. James "Jesus" Angleton, a senior CIA officer, became a close friend. Angleton was a legendary mole hunter, yet he never suspected Philby. They would have long lunches, sharing secrets. Angleton confided in Philby, seeking his advice. All the while, Philby was systematically betraying him, betraying his trust, betraying his country. It was a masterful performance of deception. Philby later remarked on the irony. The CIA's arch-counterintelligence expert befriending Moscow's top spy. His time in Washington was the peak of his espionage career. He funneled a vast quantity of high-grade intelligence to the KGB, information about American nuclear capabilities, about NATO war plans, and about Western intelligence operations worldwide. The damage he inflicted was incalculable. He weakened the Western alliance, undermined trust between British and American intelligence, and set back Cold War efforts by years. And he did it all with a smile A friendly drink, a reassuring word. Kim Philby, the charming Englishman, the consummate spy, the perfect traitor. Section 7. The walls have ears, suspicion mounts, the charade continues. The net began to close in 1951. It started with Donald Maclean, another member of the Cambridge Five. Maclean was serving at the British Embassy in Washington. American codebreakers had decrypted Soviet messages. They pointed to a British diplomat leaking secrets. The evidence was circumstantial, but it was building. Philby learned of the investigation. He knew Maclean was in danger. He also knew that Maclean's capture could expose the entire network, including himself. He had to act decisively yet again. He needed to warn Maclean and Guy Burgess. Burgess was also in Washington, working at the British Embassy. He was erratic, alcoholic, a security risk. Philby used Burgess to warn Maclean. It was a risky move. Burgess was unpredictable, but Philby had few options. Burgess and Maclean fled Britain in May 1951. They surfaced eventually in Moscow. Their defection caused a sensation. It was a huge embarrassment for British intelligence. Suspicion immediately fell on Philby. He was known to be close to Burgess. He was the third man, the one who must have tipped them off. The circumstantial evidence was strong. Philby was recalled to London. He faced intense interrogation by MI5 officers and by his own MI6 colleagues. They questioned him for hours, days. They laid out the evidence. His association with Burgess, his access to the information that led to the Venona decryptions pointing to Maclean. Philby remained calm. He denied everything. He used his stutter to good effect, appearing wounded, betrayed by the suspicion of his friends. He played the part of the loyal officer, unjustly accused. His charm, his coolness under pressure held. He was, after all, a master of deception. Amazingly, he was officially cleared. There was no smoking gun, no concrete proof, just strong suspicion. Nicholas Elliot, a close friend and fellow MI6 officer, played a key role in his defense. Elliot believed in Philby's innocence, or perhaps he wanted to believe. The establishment closed ranks. It was too damaging to admit that such a high-ranking officer could be a traitor. Philby resigned from MI6, but he was not prosecuted. He had survived for now. The charade continued. But the cracks were showing. The suave exterior was beginning to fray. The world was slowly waking up to the truth. Section 8. The Beirut Escape. A final cowardly flight. After his resignation from MI6, Philby reinvented himself again. He moved to Beirut in 1956. He worked as a journalist for The Observer and The Economist. It was a plausible cover. Beirut was a hotbed of espionage, a listening post for the Middle East. Philby continued to provide intelligence to the KGB, though his access was now more limited. He maintained his friendships within MI6. Some still believed in him, others harbored doubts. But for a time he seemed to have escaped the shadow of suspicion. He lived a comfortable life, enjoying the Levantine sun and the company of old friends. The past, however, has a long reach. New evidence began to surface. Flora Solomon, an old acquaintance, revealed a crucial piece of information. She claimed Philby had tried to recruit her as a Soviet spy years earlier. This was a direct accusation. It corroborated other suspicions. The evidence was now compelling. MI6 could no longer ignore it. They had to confront Philby. Nicholas Elliot, his former friend, was chosen for the task. Elliot still felt a complex mix of loyalty and dawning horror. He flew to Beirut in January 1963, prepared for a final painful confrontation. Elliot met Philby in a Beirut safe house. He laid out the evidence. He offered Philby a deal, a full confession in exchange for immunity from prosecution. Philby listened. He seemed to crumble. He confessed to some of his activities, but not all. He played for time. Elliot, perhaps naively, believed he had secured a confession. He returned to London to report. He left Philby under loose surveillance. It was a fatal mistake. Philby knew the game was up. He had no intention of facing British justice or further interrogation. He had one last card to play. On the night of January 23rd, 1963, Kim Philby vanished. He slipped away from Beirut. He boarded a Soviet freighter, the Dolmatova. He sailed to Odessa and to a new life in the Soviet Union. His escape was a final act of betrayal and a final humiliation for British intelligence. They had let him slip through their fingers again. The charming Englishman, the master spy, had made his final cowardly flight, leaving behind a trail of shattered trust and unanswered questions. His defection confirmed the worst fears. The extent of his treachery was finally undeniable. Section 9. Moscow's Grey Embrace, Disillusionment, and a Traitor's End. Kim Philby arrived in Moscow expecting a hero's welcome. He had served the Soviet cause faithfully for 3 decades. He had delivered priceless intelligence. He had risked everything. But the reality of life in the Soviet Union was a shock. He was initially met with suspicion by the KGB. They subjected him to lengthy debriefings. They questioned his motives, his loyalty. It was a bitter irony. After years of deceiving the West, he now found himself doubted by his Soviet masters. The paranoia of the KGB was legendary, even for its most prized agents. His life in Moscow was far from glamorous. It was mundane, grey. He was given a comfortable apartment, a pension, but he was isolated. He spoke little Russian. He missed the intellectual sparring, the clubbable atmosphere of London. He drank heavily. His health declined. Melinda McLean, Donald McLean's estranged wife, joined him for a time, but their relationship eventually failed. He found some solace with Rufina Pukova, a Russian woman half his age. They married in 1971. She brought a measure of stability to his later years, but the underlying disillusionment remained. The Soviet Union he had idealized from afar was very different up close. He saw the corruption, the inefficiency, the lack of freedom. He had dedicated his life to this system, and now he was confronted with its flaws. He wrote his memoirs, My Silent War, a carefully sanitized account of his espionage career. It was published in 1968. It offered little true insight into his motivations or his regrets. He was eventually awarded Soviet citizenship and several medals, including the Order of Lenin. The KGB finally formally acknowledged his contributions, but it felt like a hollow victory. Kim Philby died in Moscow in May 1988. He was 76 years old. He was buried with full military honors, a hero of the Soviet Union, but his legacy in Britain is one of infamy. He was one of the most damaging traitors in modern history. His actions had profound consequences for British intelligence, for the Western Alliance, and for the individuals he betrayed. His story is a complex tapestry of conviction, deception, and ultimately perhaps a quiet despair. The charming Englishman who fooled the world found himself in the end a lonely figure in a land that was not his own, a stranger in a strange, grey land.